Also, there is a personal angle. Like we both are Ukrainians. Um, I don't know how to say that right, but Ukraine never had the lack of information operations and disinformation. So we always been a target of the most sophisticated disinformation machine out there.
Would have you been able to stop the Cambridge Analytica attacks when it happened?
Tracking the words is exactly the problem why the companies oftentimes are in a trouble. Because typically what they would do, they would put a name of a company, a name of a CEO, a name of two more main products.
I can imagine.
And then
That's what I would do.
yes, and that's what everyone would do. But then it might surprise everyone.
Is it your model or is a wrapper on something else?
Platforms where there is lots of disinformation, very little moderation, like Telegram, for example. This is Wild West for the disinformation. Like,
Andriy Kusyy, co-founder of LetsData. Welcome to What's in Store show.
thank you. Very nice to be here.
Very glad and very honored to have you. It took a while, and I thought this episode will never happen. To be to be fair, to be honest, but it does. So we have many topics I think to discuss, but the best thing for the audience that maybe they don't know you and they don't know what LetsData is, that's a classic question. Can you please tell what you do with your life?
Was my life or was LetsData? That's
I think LetsData take a big chunk of your life.
a majority, I would say. My family definitely thinks so.
Yeah.
So at LetsData, we are an AI radar against disinformation. So basically, what we do, we scan media and social media, and then we use our understanding and research on how the information operations and disinformation work, combine it with artificial intelligence in order to simulate and automate the ways to detect early signals of disinformation. And then the idea is that we would like to provide an early warning to the organizations with whom we work so that there is enough time to mitigate any potential impacts of disinformation. So we act as a radar against disinformation, basically.
Okay. And I guess you use many buzzwords as well, but what would be the case? And you know that now when everyone says AI, everyone's get hype, but actually I think that you do something that makes sense. Could you put the right example that could be easy for the people to understand how it works, this radar?
So basically, we have on the data from the media and social media, we use lots of machine learning models to enrich this data and then to have additional signal.
From all the social media?
Majority of them, yes. Like we do work with the data from Telegram, TikTok, Meta platforms, Twitter, and others. So all of the larger ones.
Because that information is public, so you can access to it.
Only the public information. So we don't have any private information or the information. We follow the GDPR and the policies of the platforms. So, and then the idea is that, for example, you are a company and suddenly under your publications, a group of bot accounts started to spread the conspiracy theories. For example, you produce something and then the bot accounts start to spread the story that you use forbidden materials or something like that in the production. So it can be done by some cyber criminals just trying to harm your company. This could be done by competitors. This could be done by hostile state because of the strategic position your company is having. So eventually, the problem is that for you on the side of the company, it might look like just a random event, like a random series of events. But at LetsData, we would see that this is a coordinated campaign because of the how often does the bots commenting, whether they are using the same messages and so on. So the idea is that it would take quite a long time for your team to figure out that it's a coordinated attack against you, while we train our system to detect it as early as possible so that this campaign could be stopped at the inception.
Okay, and so I can imagine that you can tell to a company, X company, let's O2 Telefonica, they are receiving some, I don't know, random comments or misinformation about Markus Haas, the CEO of Germany, or Payete, the CEO of the global company. So then you would find this I don't know if it's like in YouTube, you have like 200 bots that are saying that Marcus Hasi is a criminal. So I'm tracking that and I'm telling you, hey, in YouTube, you have these alerts. In TikTok, you have also some alerts that something wrong is also going on with someone in Telefonica and blah, blah, blah. And I show it, I show them to you, but I cannot do anything because you cannot delete them. You cannot delete those comments, no? And how is the process
Yeah.
specifically with the company?
So yeah, for example, if it's a company, there could be multiple use cases. We could have, for example, accounts trying to impersonate the CEO of the
As
company
well.
acting. That could be a case. There could be accounts spreading some conspiracy theories about the company. There could be bots engaging and writing the negative comments under the publications of the company and so on. The idea is that as soon as we detect a case, like it's not like we did a scan and then we send you, okay, you have 15 problems on YouTube. This is a real time thing. So as soon as we detect one case, we would notify you and your team according to a certain response and coordination plan. So, for example, for specific use cases, if it's an impersonation, maybe you want to involve legal, maybe you want to involve compliance teams so they can contact the platforms and try to remove. For the other use cases, maybe you want to involve comms team so they prepare a statement and then try to release the statement. So you can set up who gets those alerts and in which like order. And then once once you are done with the setup, as soon as there is a high chance that this is like this disinformation event or information operation event, your team would receive an alert, and then you would have a chat-like interface or like assistant interface, which helps you to understand deeper. But the problem that we are solving is that typically it would be very hard for it would take lots of manual effort for the teams to discover those disinformation events and to understand their scope and potential impact, while we do that automatically. So then basically we can find them much faster and we can find much more of them at the inception phase.
We will get into technology maybe a bit later, but just to dig a little bit more in the case. So do the client access to a platform? Do they get the notifications per email, or how do they get that information of, hey, you have one alert? Because you may have 200 alerts, because if it's a
Yeah.
coordinated attack, suddenly your email will be swamped. So how do you manage these alerts?
So there is a platform behind where there is the escalation plans are set up. So who gets which types of alerts, and the system classifies the alerts, whether for which geography they are, for which like which type of alert, which priority of the alert you get. So there is a certain classification, and there is a platform where the response plan is being managed.
Okay.
And then there also the in terms of how to get them, many organizations would like to get them through an email or like Slack or other types of means of communications. Potentially, we are looking to integrate those alerts into some of the other intelligence systems that that the companies might have in place for like more of a centralized response. And then for every behind every alert, there will be an ability for the company and like the users to give a feedback and say, okay, this alert was useful. I mean, I acted on this alert, and or say, actually, you know what, this was not useful. I mean, this was not a threat, and then we use this feedback to understand which alerts are useful or which are not, and tailor the system. But to your point about 200 alerts, I just want to say that it's one of the biggest problem with systems like with many alerting systems is that suddenly you get hundreds of alerts and
Yeah.
everyone just filters them to spam.
Yeah.
That's not our case. We aim for the super high filtration ratio. So if you receive an alert from us and it's a red alert that says this is an emergency, there will be like the acknowledge ratio would be 97+%. There will be very rare the number of false positives would be extremely low. That's our value, is that we do not bother you with the things that you don't need to know.
And I guess that you do this then for written comments. But if I'm imagining now a TikTok, if you have a deep fake in the video, so the CEO is being impersonated by someone else, you're not in that field of video. You're just saying, okay, here in the comments of the official account, you're having 50 people that probably are bots saying X or Y, right? You get into the written, but not the video or image.
Yeah, that's. I mean, not exactly because so. In terms of the videos, there are multiple things you can do as the video to actually act on it.
Hmm.
First of all, there is a part about the written content on the video, like the
The
recognition.
captions.
Yeah, no, actually, the usually you will have, for example, pictures with some text written on it.
Ah, okay.
So you'll definitely get those. Secondly, you have anything that been has been said and the captions. So we would do the
Okay.
transcripts
Okay.
of those in order to interlay it with the description that the video has. Also, for some of the cases, we tested the descriptive analysis of the video. So basically, when you just do the description of what's going on in the video and then include it in, this is something that is not yet fully. I wouldn't say that we use it all the time,
Hmm.
but even for the videos, you would have lots of information represented as a text for every video, in
Hmm.
addition to the like comments and in addition to the descriptions that you have.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Now I was thinking that in the case that you meet a startup that is working on deep fake, you're not competitors because you should
Oh no,
work together
no,
probably
we
rather
do
than.
not aim to like actually. At LetsData, it's for us. It's not that much about the fakes, because from what we've seen, like 90+% of the cases, they are not exactly fakes. They're rather
Mm.
misinterpretations. They are rather misplacement or like just the synthetic content fully made up. It's not about faking the information. So oftentimes it's about misrepresenting things
Hmm.
or like showing, trying to sway an opinion in a coordinated manner.
Hmm.
So that's why we do not concentrate on detecting the generated content or fake content that much. But in case of a deep fake, you would very quickly have like you would see if it's a deep fake video released not from released from some fake accounts, you would see very strange engagement patterns. Suddenly, like different accounts would start reposting it.
Mm.
Accounts that would typically not engage with your company. There will be a lot very different commenter behavior there. So you can still, even without knowing that it's a deep fake, you can see that this video is suspicious. This piece of
Okay.
content is suspicious, and make a decision on top of on that piece of content and alert on that piece of content.
I get it. Can you or are you allowed to give any specific example of some really strong case that you have with some of your clients?
I mean, we as a company act quite a lot in the civil society slash government space, and there are quite a lot of strong use cases during the big political events and summits. But unfortunately, there will be this is a very sensitive topic. To be honest, that's one of the difficulties of being of doing any, I don't know, marketing or communications in this space, is that no one wants
To be on the
to
spotlight
talk
with this.
about the disinformation cases that they are facing, either like averted ones or those one, especially those ones that
Mm.
went through. So yeah, it's a very difficult spot to name the big cases, because no one
Okay.
wants to talk about them.
Okay, I won't push you then there. I know you have clients. I know more or less your
Yeah.
revenue. I know some information. um, but then is there any social network that is more prone to receive attacks or than others, or that is easy to manage this kind of coordinated attacks?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the region in which we are talking, but this would change a bit.
Hmm.
But for example, there are platforms where there is lots of disinformation, very little moderation, like Telegram, for example. This
Mm.
is wild west for the disinformation. Like, it's you have lots of chats, you have lots of channels with the information spreading. There is very little moderation happening,
Yeah.
and it's not the most obvious one to monitor. That's why we've put oftentimes we see this information campaign starting on Telegram, like some
Mm.
anonymous Telegram chat where someone would post something and it would just go from smaller channel to the bigger channel to the bigger channel, and then someone will pick it up on Facebook or Reddit or pick it up on YouTube, referencing to the Telegram channel. So that's the good thing, is that since we have very good Telegram monitoring, we can spot it there
Mm.
before it spreads into the other platforms and make it a huge impact.
Very interesting. So, how would you need to, and do you need to be part of the group first, of the Telegram group, to access to the information? Or imagine the group is the Earth is flat one, and then how do you get, and they have 15 members. So they're starting, right? But you know that something's cooking there and you want to see because your client works in, it's NASA. I don't care. And they want to fight against that. Would you be also a part of the group to be able to access that information, or you don't even need to be part of the group to access that information?
So in majority of the cases, you would have channels in Telegram, and channels are public, so you don't need to be part of the channel
Okay.
to access the information. Oftentimes in Telegram, you also have chats, which are like more of a private version of the channels. So then you need to be part of the group, but there are certain like limitations in like which we would typically not cross. So it's basically, if it's a group of 15 people, that's definitely
makes
not
no
an
sense.
interest for us. So
Do you have a limit?
yeah, it's internal. I wouldn't tell it because then many many of them would just suddenly start to be it's like limit -1. But there are certain limits in the use cases. So definitely we would not be interested in the groups of 15 people, and
Okay.
it would raise some questions to be part of those. So
Yes, of course.
It's typically we operate only in the public spaces, and after certain size, they become relatively public, but just different type.
I get it. And how difficult it is the part to then take actions to stop that from happening? Because imagine you do a perfect scan with your radar and you said, look, there's something really bad going on Telegram. It already spread to Reddit, went to Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And then I guess that the company could also feel a bit powerless because they were like, how do I stop this now?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. So first of all, in the ideal scenario, and in most of the cases, if it's an information operation so just to give you an example, we've had one information operation during a big event, and our system picked up a false conspiracy theory. So okay, there is a country in which there is a big event. And then suddenly, like 4 days or 5 days before the event, our system picks up a conspiracy theory on Telegram in large channels about this event and what would it be happening there. And it's a ridiculous conspiracy theory, but it's gaining traction like hell. But it's not in the country where the event is. So our system would track that, but since it's relevant, there will be alerts coming in. And then suddenly on the day of the event, someone suddenly you see that the story starts to pop up in the country where the event is in order to fuel protests and in order to disrupt the public order.
Yeah.
So, but since our system picked up the story even like in the baking, if you can call it this way, the event team was ready and they had a certain set of statements ready in the other platforms, which they released. And basically the story didn't go through because you already have. The thing is that it's very, in many of the cases, it's very important to have your version first. You have your version, for example, if the story was detected on Telegram and we see from how the typically networks behave, the story will go to next to, I know, YouTube, or will go next to the Meta platforms, right? Then for us, it's extremely important to notify while it's still on Telegram, so that the company or an organization working can have their communications on Meta or on Facebook ahead of that. Or in many other cases, it might be a case for example, for moderation. So might be a concern that is raised to the platforms to moderate. For example, if there's a fake accounts being used or impersonating accounts being used, or for example, there are synthetic identities being used, the companies can raise this statement for moderation.
Yeah, I was thinking, okay, so in here, the answer would be we try to get the vaccine, and then the company or whoever, or the state or whoever is your client in this case would prepare some antibodies to be able to fight that thing.
It's an extremely good metaphor. I think it's also about simulating and anticipating the risks. So oftentimes for specific types of threats, you would need a specific type of response, and we would need the right people to be notified in the right order, and that would be a big part. So for example, if you know that your company is constantly being attacked on the disinformation about, let's say, your ESG and your environmental standing, right? and there is lots of fake stories going through, it's very good to have a ready statement about the facts and to have a communications ready, so it could be released once this is happening. Or for example, if you know that historically there have been cases when suddenly the synthetic identities of your employees start to pop up on the platforms, like on some social media platforms, and you know, and we and you, we all know that historically that leads to the increase in the phishing attacks.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, today there are like 15 fake accounts, synthetic accounts of the employees popped up on the platforms,
Yeah.
and then a few days later there will be attempts to do the public social engineering campaigns. There will be increase in the phishing attempts. There will be emails from those accounts to your employee, like not from the accounts, for people with this accounts to your employees and so on. You can issue a internal communications and make
Mm-hmm.
sure that your employees are ready for an upcoming phishing, or
And
you
they're
might
aware.
increase the filters, or and so on and so on. So there are lots of ways in which the insights can be connected to the actions, so that we are all about preventing. So the preventive measures can be
Yeah.
taken.
Makes sense. Okay. Then what I was thinking is that, I don't know, from my ignorance, you would have different technologies, because I guess that is not the same to track synthetic identity rather than to say you have some bots commenting on YouTube. That doesn't need to be Andriy's bot. It could be a different name, whatever. But Senia, but commenting on about something else. But Senia is the other co-founder, by the way. That
Yeah.
she's not here today. We haven't mentioned. Shout out to her. But so if you have these bots commenting, I'm asking, I don't know, is it one type of technology, and then to be able to identify that my identity is being stolen and used, is it a different kind of technology, different process, or how does it work? How many different things do you have to put together to make a cohesive and let's say a unified
Yeah.
approach to the threats?
Yeah, that extremely good question. I think it's very unfortunate that Xenia is not here. She would have a very good answer, but I will try my best. So the idea is that you're right, it's a bit different in terms of the scenarios or cases that might happen. But what is unified is a type of data. So you have a certain stream of media and social media data, enriched with the certain machine learning techniques. We understand whether there is a publication link in some aligned channels, like what's the commenting behavior, and so on and so on. So basically, we have lots of this like additional signal, and then for every scenario, it's just that you need to different types of signals would be more important than the others. So, for example, if you have a certain, let's say, conspiracy theory being spread, it would be more important to see like the connection in between channels and see this reinforcements of them reposting. Like, while if you have synthetic identities or bots, it would be important more the features on the commenting time and so on would be more important in this particular case. So there will be different things you would need to look for in order to find the scenarios, but eventually it's the same, like the same baseline data. So it's just that different features are more important in different cases.
Okay. So it's not radically
It's not
different.
15 systems. It's just one system which uses different features with different, let's say, importance and in different configuration to make certain decisions.
And then before you mentioned that you may have something cooking in one country, and then the main event will happen in another country. So do the different countries have different methods to get the information? Because in how many countries do you have some ears and eyes?
Till that day, we have some experience working in at least 46 to 50. I think 50. We should have crossed the 50 mark. 50 countries. And so different countries would be different in terms of they will have different media consumption habits, like different platforms would be top ranking, while some would be more used, some would be less used. Some countries would have a bit more of a dynamic media space, some would be less dynamic. But in reality, like there are lots of similarity. Like the disinformation playbook would be very similar. Like the attacks would be relatively similar.
Okay. And I was thinking that the language also, you need to be
So we
quite
collect the
accurate with the
data
language.
in all of those, like in the local languages, and
Mm-hmm.
we do many processing in the local languages.
Okay.
But then for certain aspects of the system, we do centrally process it in like we do centralized and process it in English. So there are like components of the system which work in the
Mm-hmm.
local languages, and some components work with the adjusted and translated content.
Mm-hmm. Which are these 50 countries roughly? Where are they?
Lots of European countries. Then we have Asian. We worked in the Asian countries, in the Middle East, and also South America.
And not North America.
Actually, not that much. So we used to collect the data and had the clients there. So we have the clients that are actually active clients, but I wouldn't say there is for us. There is sometimes a difference in between where the companies are located
Mm.
versus what they are monitoring.
Mm.
Oftentimes, like for example, the US market, it would be extremely saturated with it would be a red ocean of tools and instrument. Everyone is monitoring the media and social media in the US, right?
Okay.
But oftentimes you have the companies, even in the US, or like the organizations in the US, and they need to monitor some countries in Eastern Europe or
Mhm.
monitor some countries in Central Asia because they have operations there.
Mm.
And there will be very little they can do, and there will be very little solutions. So oftentimes our advantage would be that we have many of the geographies other don't,
Mm.
and we can enter by starting in those countries.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, this opens a door to many other questions, right? uh, because, so first of all, mainly your clients, your end clients, because, well, yeah, you didn't mention it yet, but if I'm not mistaken, your approach is B2B to G or B2B to B. Um, so your final clients, these G, um, I'm trying to think of the right way to ask it because
Wow, that's a difficult one if you
no,
think
no, no,
about the
no,
right
no.
way.
I don't know if I want to go to that path yet. Actually, I don't want to go to that path yet. I'll go later. But first, so can you just share a little bit of the view of your client so far? Because I mentioned B2B2G, B2B2B, just to understand a little bit your moment as a company, and then we may go back to the other question. But so far, you were targeting B2B2G, and now maybe you want to pivot a little bit more because you want to grow in that sense. Can you share a little bit more of why this pivot to B as well? If G seems to be a really a natural customer for you, why to also go for B? Uh,
Interesting. So, yeah, I mean, both governmental structures and corporate structures, they both face the threats from disinformation.
mhm.
There are differences in dynamics sometimes, like oftentimes with the governments, we have lots of hostile states playing in, while with the corporates it might be a bit less of the hostile state,
Yeah.
maybe it's sometimes competition, maybe it's cyber
Mm.
criminals. But the thing is that there is this there are quite a lot of research nowadays about the disinformation as a service solutions and companies. So this is starting to be, or actually this is already a market where, I don't know, running a fake story and making it viral would cost, I don't know, a few thousand, and then destroying someone's reputation would cost maybe a dozen thousand, and so on and so on. So this is start
That's
to be a
scary.
market. Yeah, it's a very scary market, but it starts to be a market. And while maybe this market started started more active in the G, like
Mhm.
started more active with some states sponsoring more and more services like that, um, it's now it's the market. So now private companies or like some cyber criminals could also use those services. So what I'm trying to say is that very similar techniques which we've seen for a very long time in the G are being used against B.
Okay.
So for us, it's
Get it.
very organic to move because also we see that, I mean, it might not be exactly right, but while the G was, the governments were thinking a bit longer about this information as an issue, the businesses were maybe like concerned, but not that much concerned. But we see a bigger threat right now, an increasing threat, and for us, it's an organic move to actually step into those high risks areas like finance, insurance, telecoms, where and consumer brands where the disinformation risks are rather high.
I mean, from the outside, it seems way more interesting the government because it's like that you're getting access to so many information, and to be able to say what's misinformation, you need to know what's the truth, which sometimes I think is not easy.
I'm not sure I agree about the truth part.
Okay.
Because truth is something that should be very objective, right? Oftentimes it's about whether someone is making a coordinated effort
Okay.
to sway
Get
public
it.
opinion and to sway to seed a certain narrative, or to sway a public opinion, or to seed a certain fake story. And like you say, it's more about the government, but let's take an example. You are a semiconductor company, right? I mean, it's a business, but this company would be a target of dozens and hundreds of disinformation campaigns, because it's a business, but it's also a bit of it's a very politics related business.
Yeah.
And so is the case with many large enterprises. So many of them are, if you are involved, for example, you might be targeted by the hostile state because of your position in one or the other like part of the world, or you might be targeted by the competitors, or someone might want to disrupt your merger with the other company just because, or some cyber criminals might want to play a short on your stock and then decide to run a disinformation campaign in order to make a gain. So there are lots of financial incentives for many of the actors to harm private companies too. It's not only the states playing against the states.
Yeah, I'm seeing now all the different. Now that you mentioned the coordinated attack to make a stock fall, I've seen it several times in the stock market, especially with smaller companies, so small capitalization companies, like for under 10
Yeah.
billion companies, they will not have the resources probably to stop this.
I think recently, for example, no, not recently. That's quite an old story. But I remember there was a case of two large companies moving ahead with the like multi-billion merger,
Yeah.
and then this whole merger was disrupted by the fake report,
Imagine.
which was circulated widely over the network. And I mean, if you have a multi-billion merger disrupted, that's a multi-million losses for each of them.
In this case, I don't remember how much you were charging for that, but it would be not enough. It would be way
Yeah,
cheap.
definitely we would be it would be not even a fraction of a percent.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think, for example, also there was a statistic some time ago that oftentimes this disinformation events, they lead to certain media crisis, like to lead to the companies entering into the crisis. And I remember there was a research on what's the impact, and as far as I remember, it was 19% share price drop as a result of that major crisis.
Yeah.
And then it takes more than a year to recover.
Yeah.
So if you are a public company, it might be a serious blow to you. But for example, if you're a financial institution, you also have the shareholders, you have your customers, everyone is you are significantly
worse.
impacted, and it could be even impact on the revenues, not only on the share price.
Okay, now I think it's more clear to understand the B case as well, the business case. Then I think it's such an interesting topic, honestly, that so because I write it down, I keep writing down things that I want to ask you, and it's like I don't want the people to get lost in my random thoughts. So I'll try to get it back down to something that you said before. 50 countries, many different languages. And of course, in many different languages, you have some words that you made up, you have some dialects, you have some accents, you have some, etc., right? So I remember vaguely that there was something that it was not called exact coherence with the words, but it was a different way to track them. So imagine if I say conspiracy, but instead of conspiracy, I write a 4 somewhere, or one conspiracy, or I said conspiracy because because in this area of Germany we say transparency instead of conspiracy. How do you manage and how do you make sure that you track the right words and therefore you're able to identify?
Yeah, first of all, I think, wow, that's a good question. I like it. So there are many angles to this question. Number one is tracking the words. Tracking the words is tricky. Tracking the words is exactly the problem why the companies oftentimes are in a trouble. Because typically what they would do, they would put a name of a company, a name of a CEO, a name of two more main products.
I can imagine.
And then
that's what I would do.
Yes, and that's what everyone would do. But then it might surprise everyone.
I would hire LetsData. I would hire LetsData to be honest.
Yeah, now you would. But that would surprise everyone. But those people who are orchestrating these information campaigns know that you would do that. So they would definitely change the wordings. They might run attack without even naming your company. Like it's very easy to describe Telefonica without ever mentioning Telefonica. So like it's not that many big telecoms in Germany, and you can just describe it and everyone would understand. But your keyword tracker would completely miss it. So first of all, it's not about the keywords. It's about tracking the right channels as well as tracking what we call a semantic similarity. It's like a technical term, but it's more about comparing the content as a whole. Like this is a special technique through which you can cluster and work with the content. And then in terms of when you said about the word, there was recently a big case that we've discovered. It was a big campaign, disinformation campaign on Facebook, and the idea of the campaign was that there were, as far as I remember, close to 80 or something like that. I don't remember the exact number, but there were quite a lot of Facebook groups which would circulate the AI-generated content, get lots of audience, like very manipulative AI-generated content. Okay. They would show the pictures of the children being without the parents, and then they would be like, "Oh, please help this child," and that would be AI-generated content. This was awful in many countries. But the thing is that in order for that to be harder to track, they would sometimes just replace the letters with the symbols or so on and so on. So luckily, in our case, first of all, we use this semantic similarity, so we already know that these publications are close together, even if they use those symbols. Secondly, also, if it's a name of a company or anything like that, from the context, we would often understand that this is what it's called named entity, like an entity, which is about the name of a company or so on, and our system would match them together. So if, for example, there are probably, if you scan everything that is written about you, there probably would be some people that are misspelling Gonzalo, right? And then our system would match all those Gonzalos together and show you the aggregated one. And then it will also search the relevant publication around what's been written for you.
I guess then that's part of the AI layer that we were talking before. It's like, okay, you've trained a model that understands that all of this relates to Gonzalo for some reason.
Yeah, we have a model that would help us to match lots of Gonzalos together and understand it's all about the same Gonzalo.
Is it your model or is a wrapper on something else?
No, it's the model that we've tuned and deployed on our end.
Then this allows me to ask you actually for the beginning of the company. How did you start the company and why?
Yeah.
It's not that long ago. Come on.
So in the 50s. No. Me and my co-founder, we actually know each other. Xenia, we know each other for a long time now. We know each other for probably 8 years or so. And that's my co-founder who has a deep expertise in the disinformation research.
We will bring her to the podcast now.
Yeah, I think we might. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's actually, you're right, because that gives this unique perspective, because her background is disinformation research and fighting disinformation. My background is artificial intelligence and automating stuff and natural language processing. So you can see and feel that by the conversation and lots of lost technical details. But the idea is that for a long time, we've been very curious on she was very frustrated by the instruments that exist to deal with this information, and I was very curious, how do you do the research of the networks, how do you automate it? And that's how we collaborated. We ran a number of projects together before start of the company, and at certain point, actually after the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine, we understood that it's very hard to make a huge impact with the projects. Like we did the research on like gender disinformation in certain countries, and
Kind
then
of as a freelancers.
more, yeah, like as a freelancers or as a even sometimes social, sometimes freelancers, sometimes pro bono, like different models, but just explored with the space. We researched disinformation about the energy security, disinformation about the different gender groups in different countries. Then we would publish a report or design an intervention. So we've been doing lots of that. But we understood that in order to make a real impact, you need a scalable product. And that's how we decided, okay, we understand what's the problem with what are the set of problems with the existing products. So that's how we decided, okay, let's design something that resolves those problems. And that's how LetsData started. And this is the whole idea about us trying to automate the discovery of information operations and trying to give you signal on the information operations instead of just providing you a dashboard with dimensions.
Okay, so you started because you had similar common interest, and you were complementing each other. I guess
Yeah.
you're more technical, she's more into the misinformation stuff, and yeah, okay.
Also, there is a personal angle. Like we both are Ukrainians. I don't know how to say that right, but Ukraine never had the lack of information operations and disinformation. So we always been a target of the most sophisticated disinformation machine out there. So we've seen what disinformation campaigns can do to the society, how they can harm people, how they can impact the lives of people. So that's why it was also there is a big personal part about like dealing with disinformation and trying to make the biggest impact. That's why we were curious about scaling and making the biggest impact, helping more and more organizations, not just running local projects.
Yeah, that's why at some point I was asking you about the truth, because the case of Ukraine and Russia, you would have different versions, and then some people with radical and extreme different opinions would think that that's the truth, and you cannot differentiate who would say the truth, I guess, because you say, okay, if this government hires me, then this government is the truth for me.
That's not how we would work.
Okay, then explain me why not.
No, because as I was trying to say is that
But you get what I mean. Like, okay, that's the truth. Okay, I'll go for it, and then I'll make the rest, which it could lead to perverse interest and malicious interest.
yeah, I mean, for us, as I say, it's more about detecting those deliberate and coordinated efforts, detecting those violations of the terms, like using the bots or so on, and then notifying the other side about, like the side for whom we work about that. So to give you an example, if you are a certain malicious government that just would like to sway a public opinion, and then suddenly you build a bot farm that goes into the publications of people and just sends them the links to the malicious content, right? So that's the thing that our system would detect, like this activity of those bots just going and then sending the links to the malicious content and so on, so that those who are productive actors who are trying to play by the rules, who are trying to keep the information space safe from the manipulations and disinformation, those sites can know the whole information about that and design the correct intervention. So but there is, for us, it's important to show the objective truth, show the objective signal, not really the truth, but the objective signal from the social media. And if there could be some organic events, there could be some synthetic events or so on. The idea is that we show the signal this what data shows. Data shows that there are high likelihood of bot activity here. This is a high likelihood that there are
Yeah.
synthetic accounts created here. There is a high likelihood that this conspiracy theory is being pushed
Yeah.
deliberately. So, and then we just highlight the high likelihood and help to choose the right intervention
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
deal with that.
I guess. Yeah. What I was thinking is that you can say there's a likelihood that this is a coordinated attack, but maybe what they're saying is right. Imagine, I don't know, whatever. They're saying something that is right, but you don't get into that because you're not able to evaluate what's the truth. But you say there's a coordinated attack in here for some bots. They're saying that God exists, but you don't want to tell if God exists or not. You're saying, okay, there's a coordinated attack with bots saying this. Could it be true? Could it be not true? But there's the attack.
Yeah, for us, it's less about the true or not true. You're right. If
That's
it's
it.
a
That's it.
coordinated effort, we would
That's
notify
it.
about the coordinated effort. Eventually, at the end of the day, um, as long as, first of all, there are things that violate the policies of the platforms and that are in a certain cases illegal, in certain cases against the policies, then they would be moderated according to the rules by which everyone should play. And then there are things that are not violating, and then our goal is to detect and notify, and then ideally, how to say that right, find um, the best mitigation strategy. But ourselves, we would not go and just like we wouldn't go and launch the bot answer or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's not what we do,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. That's
So
it. That's it.
if there is someone would like to spread a certain story and it affects our customer, and this is done in a coordinated manner using bots, if it's done like synthetically or so on, that's something that our customer will receive as a signal. And
Understood.
eventually
Understood.
they need to make a decision what they do about that.
Yeah.
Like we wouldn't make the decision for them what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. What I was thinking now is how difficult it is to train that model to be able to understand what is an attack, what is not an attack, who's Gonzalo, who's not Gonzalo.
Yeah, this is difficult, and that's like there. First of all, it's not
Especially if you
a
do it
model.
yourself. Yeah.
It's actually lots of models. It's
Okay.
the whole like pipeline or the whole combination of models working together. Some models understand that there is a name mentioned in a text.
Yeah.
Some and then an extension of this model understand that 15 options of writing, like 15 spellings of Gonzalo are the same Gonzalo in this particular context. And then the another model is understanding that those 500 publications are about the same thing. So there is like a cascade or a combination of models working together. So it's more of a system. But it's right. You are right, and we still rely on we have a very strong intelligence team, so our strong analytics team, who are also validating many of the insights, giving the feedback to the system, so that we can make sure that we keep collecting the data and keep, how to say it right, that we keep creating a data set, keep creating and understanding what's is an attack and what is not. So we are not bothering the clients about the things
Yeah.
that are not an attack.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. I was thinking that, for example, in I guess in TikTok, if you have some accounts publishing some information about Andriy, and they call you different Andreys, and they obviously they spell it wrong, but at some point some accounts are calling you Eagle instead of Andriy. To be able to identify that those accounts that are not calling you Andriy or anything similar, it's not a typo. It's that they're calling you a different name that they put you and you don't know about it. They are calling you Eagle now. How do you do the tracking? Because it's like there should be any link between those accounts for you to be able to identify, oh, Eagle is Andriy. You know what I mean? How are you going to be able, how is the model able to understand that that word that has nothing to do with Andriy, maybe this is a very stupid question, but
It's perfectly valid question, I would say. Intrinsically, why would I be an ego? But uh, eventually, there are. So first of all, typically they would write something with the context, right? So they would say Andriy, founder of LetsData, or
So there you
Andriy.
already have 2 more points:
So
founder and
so
LetsData.
basically, it's not even 2 more points. You would have a certain like, Andriy, founder of this AI-driven startup, or Andriy, founder of LetsData, or Andriy, founder of this company that fights disinformation, blah 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 blah
Uh-huh.
blah, and then there will be like a much bigger. If they just say Andriy, 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 and then
Yeah.
Eagle, there is nothing we can do.
Yeah.
But if there is a certain context, then for example, and you have 500 videos in which in 499 they say Andriy, founder of LetsData, a
And then one
company
the
that
same thing.
fights disinformation,
Yeah.
and then
Okay.
in one they say Eagle, founder of
I get
the.
it. I get it. Yeah.
So eventually, our system would highlight that this is the same cluster,
Yeah.
and there will be this weird Eagle, which would be like, what's Eagle? So there will be like an unknown entity. Then this entity would be linked to Andriy, because like there is nothing else to link it to. So there is a technique. There are techniques that allow you to actually understand this link. So it's rather it's not an easy task, to be honest, but there are techniques to match and understand that.
Mm. Would have you been able to stop the Cambridge Analytica attacks when it happened?
I think that, wow. uh, I think the Cambridge Analytica attacks, I wouldn't say that was our job to stop them, because typically, that's a good question. I never thought of it. Often people ask me, could have we saved the Silicon Valley Bank, but never about the Cambridge Analytica.
I care more about the Cambridge Analytica than about the Silicon Valley Bank.
It's a good question. I think, if I understand, Cambridge Analytica was mining lots of data from the media and social media platforms, way more, because back then it was also a bit of a wild west. You can get whatever data you want. And then they were using this data to do the targeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it's difficult to say. Some of the, I would say that we wouldn't be able to stop Cambridge Analytica from getting the data. Like, that's
Yeah,
not our job.
that's for
That's
sure.
the platform's job, and they are doing that now. We probably wouldn't be able to stop Cambridge Analytica from creating a targeted content, right? So that's also, maybe if they run this coordinated targeted content, and then there are suddenly spikes of those content, that's something that our system might have picked up. So I would say we might have picked up the results of the Cambridge Analytica, of someone using Cambridge Analytica, of Cambridge Analytica using those micro targeting and those targeted messaging and those campaigning to actually impact. But that's a difficult question to me.
No, it's okay, because I was
We
thinking.
lived in the different times.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but it was something that I guess at some point it's something that, especially when you were mentioning the attacks, all the attacks that are easy to do and how little cost they have, it's like, okay, maybe there's something that could be done, especially we're having the United States election very soon. So it's highly likely that something like this will happen. Even from individuals now that will find some way to, how can I help my candidate, the Republicans or the Democrats? How can I help them? And then they try maybe to do these coordinated attacks of course, in a minor scale. And I was like, yeah, but what if a bigger company tries to do it? Will it still be working? And then if that's the case, will LetsData be able to stop them or not? That was my chain of thoughts.
I think for this cases, what's important to understand is that oftentimes you cannot just. It's not that you can today. For example, today you decided to run a disinformation campaign, and tomorrow you run it. That probably wouldn't work like that, because you need an infrastructure. For example, there is a case. I'm not sure if it, for okay. So basically, when Russia was invading Ukraine, they established a big network of Telegram channels
Okay.
in all of the cities they planned to occupy.
Really?
And they established those channels way ahead, like weeks, months ahead. And they started like fueling people, adding bots there, and then activating those channels as the invasion goes, even in the places where they never managed to get to. So what that shows is that, and in many of the other cases, when we are doing the research of the disinformation narratives and how they are spreading, you have hundreds of channels linked in the networks, like posting and reposting, engaging, sharing. Some channels are then channeling that to the other platforms and so on. Oftentimes that takes time to set up set up accounts, get the traction, connect them, and so on and so on. The idea is that it's you need to follow the infrastructure, like you need to follow those accounts, their connections, and so on. And if you have a very good tracking of the infrastructure in place, if you already established this, let's say, 50 channels that are spreading the conspiracy theories about like telecoms, right? And then when the new thing pops up there, it would be very easy to track. So my point is that there is lots of homework that need to be done on the system side, and then you can quite quickly detect things. And in with the elections, it's often also the case when you have the disinformation campaigns and the infrastructure that been prepared and used for a long time. It's rarely just a single TikTok channel that appeared today and disappeared yesterday that makes an impact.
Then I guess that the point is that that person would be hiring some of those services probably to someone else. I guess not that they already have the infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume so too. Yeah, like if this person is really deliberate to do that, which you shouldn't, then most likely they will try to hire someone. Or yeah, I think that would be the easiest because it wouldn't be that easy to just, for example, if you would like to spread some fake story, right? So you need to be to make sure that the story would be picked up and so on and so on. That wouldn't be that easy to drop the story and it would be just picked up. For example, if I go tomorrow and release a fake fake financial statement for I know Citibank, who would listen to me? Like, I need to release it in the right channel,
Of course.
in the right time, in the right format.
You
so
need
that
to
it's
cook
picked
it
up.
a little bit.
Yeah, so it needs to be cooked. Then the right number of engagement need to go. It would need to be picked up. So there is, there is an entry level to do that. It's decreasing with time because you can use lots of Gen AI nowadays and so on to generate lots of those content. But yeah,
the good thing is that Gen AI is not a problem for you so far because you're able to identify them anyway through also the bots, not the content itself, but maybe the accounts that the information comes from.
Yeah, I mean, also some of the like not all of the Gen AI is necessarily a disinformation. Some people use it for for the other purposes, but just for their work. I think half of the LinkedIn, 99% of the LinkedIn is probably Gen AI.
Man, I'm so tired of these articles with the icons that we sometimes use it for what's in store. But it's like, this is not new. Like, I'm not going to read it. Like, if I spend...
As soon as you have the bullet list and it starts with 2 words, title, and then the details, I'm like, oh, ChatGPT. I know you. That's ChatGPT. So, but then what I was trying to make a point is that Gen AI in itself is just an instrument that those disinformation players are using to make their operations more efficient.
Yeah, of course.
In this, like there was a recent case that we've discovered. As I was telling you about this big network of Facebook groups, getting lots of people with this generated content, manipulative generated content. So what they were doing later, they would later start posting links to the one-day websites, like with just ridiculous amount of advertisement. And therefore those websites would get huge traffic because of like we've seen the groups with the total account of subscribers reaching more than 1 million. So imagine that you just posted a link in all of those groups to the website and then you feel lots of traffic. So eventually what they would do, they would just burn lots of advertisement budgets and this is a simple like I'm not sure even how to call it, scam or a simple advertisement scam or so.
I've also seen it this kind in a different way maybe too. So for example, if your SEO is very good and you're top ranked and then your competitor goes below and they want to throw you down, they can drop this kind of attack that is like, okay, I will drop your link to this a lot of crappy bots that they will get in your site. Google will know, and then they will take you down because they think you're getting this, which is so bad. But then Google should be in this and Meta should be into this because, and I want you to prove me wrong, is that the case? But this shouldn't be happening because it's your platform. So Google, Meta, Telegram, they should be able to detect this before and not allowing it to happen, not you.
Um, Oftentimes, I mean, some of the platforms are doing quite well on the moderation, or at least improving. Some of them doing less. I think it's always the question that you have certain geographies which are better moderated, certain countries and places where are less moderated, and so on.
So it's about geography again.
And then secondly, it's also about the traffic. So you need, like, for the platforms, they need to keep the healthy balance in, like, why I understand why it might be difficult for them, because they need to keep the healthy balance in between still driving the advertisement traffic and then also like shutting those down.
Yeah.
While for us, the only incentive is to find it out as early as possible. So that's why we don't really. Like, that's why probably we are tuning for the rather detection than.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. If you're earning money from the ads, yeah. Um, Now that you mentioned the geography, there was a question that I had before that I didn't ask you. I will ask you now. So if you're one of your advantage you said before, that is the fact that you have access to some geographies that are not that crowded. But in US, it's a red ocean, too many people. So therefore, is there any technological difference in what you do regarding to your competitors?
I think many of our US competitors, they would just limit themselves to just one, maximum two languages in terms of the content that they are collecting and processing, and then they will just filter out everything else.
Why? Shouldn't be that difficult?
I mean, it's depends how you build your system. Like, we built our system in the way that we originally, from the day one, intended to run it in multiple languages.
Okay.
But many or the organizations, they start with just one, and then they try to scale to two. So technically, if you set up the system to be for one language, later it's relatively hard to scale it.
Okay.
Like, while we set it up for multiple languages as well. But it's not only about the languages, it's also about the certain accumulated knowledge. So for example, we already have good database of some malign channels in many of the countries where we operate, and this being extended and expanded all the time. So there are certain additional advantages. We're also part of many the groups with the different civil society organizations fighting the disinformation. So we have lots of collaborations and partnerships in order to help to have a better domain knowledge, so to say, which our product can use to provide better judgment and better detection.
Then, because I was thinking of your growth and how can you grow and where are you going to go, etc., etc. So then your core advantages would be we're multilingual since day one. We can detect from everywhere. And we are in the countries that you want to track before you. Would these two advantages, the two key advantages from LetsData among the competitors? Do you think that there's anything else that differentiates you from the rest that is doing?
I would say those are good advantages. I would definitely need to pass them to our marketing to highlight. Also, I would say how we look at that is also that many of the competitive solutions, they would only provide you simple dashboard where you can track a certain set of things, like for example those keywords or whatever. So you would still need to put lots of manual labor,
Okay.
like people sitting behind and trying to make sense of it all, which might be difficult because people tend to have day offs, people tend to have weekends, companies tend to have multiple time zones and people don't.
Yeah.
So that all leads to suddenly and disinformation campaign starts Friday night before the long weekend,
course.
and no one is there to care. Whereas us, we tend to concentrate our effort and our R&D and technology on discovering the insights and shipping the ready to act insights, so that if suddenly on the Christmas you receive there is it's very unlikely that over the Christmas you would be sitting in front of the dashboard and checking whether someone is saying something bad about your company.
Yeah.
But if you receive an email from or like other type of notification from LetsData saying code red, this is going on, and the description of which channels are reposting what's exactly going on, there is much more likelihood that you would be able to do something about that
Yeah.
versus running to the office and trying to open the laptop to log
Yeah.
into a certain dashboard. So that's number one, like us being more of a inside oriented than a platform oriented. Second one, you are right about the coverage of the countries, and we intended our platform to be and our solution to be multi-platform and multilingual, so that oftentimes for those running information operations, they wouldn't be like, okay, so we want to harm your company, we would just do that in Germany, but we would not do that in Austria and Switzerland. Like, let's not touch Austria and Switzerland. Why?
Yeah.
Like, if it's a company that represented there, there will be some German,
Of course.
fake German language fake story, which would impact that also. And then also there would the disinformation. Those people running disinformation would be like, okay, so we would harm you only on Facebook, but we wouldn't harm you on TikTok, and we wouldn't harm you on
Yeah, of course,
Telegram
you
and
gotta control.
Instagram also. We wouldn't. So
We promise.
we promise, like just TikTok or just Facebook. So we also tend to be good at linking those, like the campaigns going from one
see.
platform to another, like cross-platform, cross-border, and being about the insights.
Yeah, nice. I'm a bit mindful of your time because we're only talking about the product. I had so many questions about the team culture, the expanding to new countries, the funding round, etc. But I'm a bit mindful with your flight. So what we can do is that, well, then it's the perfect excuse for Xenia to come and talk about these kind of things as well. And then she would say, no, Andriy would talk better about this, but it's okay. I just have a couple of quick questions. Well, the first one is just a little bit an appraisal. You were the Forbes 30 under 30.
Oh yeah, thank you.
And you were also selected by Google. LetsData was selected. And
Yeah, we received this. We are super grateful for Google team for this support. This is a Ukraine support fund of. We received 100,000 in the equity free cash and also credits, and we are running on Google Cloud, so credits mean a lot to us.
Yeah, it's actually thanks to Google actually, because we met.
Yeah, at
you
the
and I
Google
met
event.
at the Google event, like
It was
2023.
AI for cybersecurity event.
Correct.
Because we are cybersecurity extended cybersecurity company. So,
Yeah. But
here in Munich, actually.
Yeah. And how was it? How was the Forbes 30 under 30? Is it something that meaningful for you, or like you were like, I don't know, they just call me and put my name in there and Senia's name, or is it?
It's hard to say. I would say it's first of all, it's very important. It's very important for us because that shows us that we are working on an important problem.
Mm-hmm.
We take it more as a recognition of that the problem that we are trying to solve is an important, and there is a demand for the solution to this problem. And it's also a big recognition for us as a whole team to have this, because it shows that we are doing something viable and impactful. So at the end of the day, it's very nice to be recognized, and we are grateful for the Forbes team for that. And this is a very strong cohort of people, and it's good to be part and peer with such a strong peers in that list.
Nice. And then the next question and the last question probably is just about the future. So to be a bit more accurate, I would like your take on how do you see the evolution of the misinformation in general, because I feel, or at least maybe it's me that I'm skewed to this, but I feel that misinformation is an increasing problem in population. I'm not new with this. I'm not like, this not me saying it. This is out there. But so when I think about the future, I'm a little bit sometimes pessimistic because of how, in particular in this topic, because how tailored everything is. So even if you work on the cookies and you work on the profiles and the identity management of the people, whatever, at the end, you will find a way to target someone with the right information, with whatever feels comfortable for him or for her. And this creates a little bit of a potential danger in the future as well. So, okay, you're going to listen only to the kind of news that I want you to listen to. And at some point, if I want you to get mad I will just suddenly hit you in the face with this kind of information. And so I'm worried about that. But how do you see it from your perspective, which is way more interesting than mine?
Oh, I think you have a very interesting perspective, just a bit scary one.
Yes.
um, from my perspective, is that there there are angles in which current technological development makes this information like faster and easier to spread and so on. But also look at our case. We are not a huge team. We've like when we've been just I don't know 6 or 7 people team, we were able using the latest AI technology. We were able to build a system that was able to catch an information operation that starts in one country, develops in the other, and then hits the third one across a few platforms. So the sheer media space that we were able to effectively monitor using the latest AI technology is immense, and
Yeah.
that makes me a bit optimistic because that shows me that um, nowadays those people on the side of countering this information also received powerful technology capable of tracking that at scale, removing that at removing eventually maybe removing that at scale and protecting. So I feel like this is the battle is not over, and there is quite a good chances that eventually our ambition is that the security threats are evolving,
Yeah.
and like some years ago everyone was scared of spam, and maybe everyone thought that it would be impossible to read
True. Good
your
point.
mailbox
Good point.
because the spam would be everywhere and so
Good
on and so on.
point.
But then spam filters are everywhere,
Very good
and
point.
you don't see it that much. Idea is that for LetsData to become this kind of additional security layer, additional spam filter if you want, but in a different metaphor, but so on still. And for us to build a solution that would be we would be able to integrate in the right places. So when someone wants to use an information operation against you and disinformation attack against you, you would know about that. There will be a certain actions that could be taken or you can take. So the idea is that we would like to establish state-of-the-art defense against information operations and keep develop at least against those that we are able to identify and keep developing it so that everyone would be included by default
Yeah.
from them.
Yeah. Maybe I was thinking that in the extreme case that I was thinking, the problem is that it's not an attack. The problem is that you are just the user is just choosing to consume certain media that is super skew, and they will reject any other information. So that's outside of the reach of Let's Data, because at some point like that's not
Yeah,
there's no attack there.
yeah. I think people falling into certain
That's it.
echo chambers of their information bubbles and staying there. It's a big problem. It's probably not a new problem. I think
No, no, it's true.
it's like certain people were reading only certain newspapers 100 years ago. It's increasing problem. I totally agree. For us at Data, it's important to make sure that we can detect and protect from as many say coordinated and deliberate efforts to harm the society, the companies using the media space, and that's the contribution we are doing. But while we are doing this contribution, we are also we feel like, for example, there are certain channels spreading misinformation about like conspiracy theories and so on. And eventually, if those channels would start attacking a company or an organization and violating the terms, they eventually might be removed, and therefore the
Yeah.
space would be
True.
safer for everyone.
True.
So we see the value in just making in detecting as many of those deliberate attempts as possible.
Then promise you that I'll let you go, but just number of employees, current employees right now in Let's Data,
18,
number of clients,
10.
and more or less ARR.
Oh no, wouldn't disclose
I
here.
wouldn't disclose. Okay.
But yeah,
I wouldn't disclose. Okay. Where are you going to be in 3 years when you come back to the What's in Store show? Because I plan to interview you, Arsenia, in 3 years maximum.
wow. So in 3 years, we definitely so right now we have a very strong use case in the vertical of this, especially with the governments. That's
Yes.
like a super strong use case. We are exploring and entering now a second vertical was the B2B angle, and we are looking to doing more and more in the finance industry, in telecoms and consumer brands. So I think our idea is that in 3 years we would like to establish de facto standard use cases in 2 to 3 verticals and become de facto standard in counter disinformation efforts. For that, we would integrate into the certain places, but eventually we want that if in certain industries, like in finance, in the governments, or in the consumer brands, people think, okay, we need a protection against disinformation, and they immediately okay, there is LetsData, let's just have LetsData for that. So that's the ambition that we have.
Are you daring to give a number of employees and clients for 2027?
I know for 2026. I think for the early 2026.
And you're very good forecasting. People doesn't know, but you're very good forecasting.
Usually, I don't think I'm very good because usually we are too pessimistic in our forecasts and
which
we
is
beat
good.
them.
That's why it's so good, because every time I see the reviews of the forecast, it's like, man, they were on top of them again. Damn it.
Yeah, I think for those you definitely be further than that, but I know that by the 2026 we plan to get to around 50 clients. And I don't think we would increase our number of employees that much, but I would say we maybe would double or a bit more than that. But
not much. Okay.
Yeah, we don't intend to hire millions of people. And
you don't need to.
And the idea is that to concentrate on a product and to make the product scalable.
Yeah.
And then get to 50, 100 clients over 2026.
Okay. Will you share your revenues back then in 2026 maybe?
I think that's a good question. So I think we plan to get to around 5 million ARR at that stage.
By 2026, you were talking about the end of the year. These numbers are the end of the year.
Summer in 2026.
Summer 2026. Even. Okay. It's recorded here, and perfect. Then I will bring you and Senia probably, if not earlier, in summer 2026.
Maybe we hit it earlier. We tend to be pessimistic in our forecasts.
You need to come earlier. Then.
We will send you LetsData alert. Bring LetsData to a podcast. They hit the revenues.
Okay. So huge thanks, Andriy. It's been a pleasure and happy to have you here again very soon.
Thank you. Very happy to be here, and it was a pleasure talking and explaining this. Maybe not the simplest product to understand.
No, but it's so interesting, man. Anyway, I will ask you to come soon.
Okay.
So, have fun until then.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.
Hasta luego.